Hello, and today I want to teach you another endgame. This is the position, it's white to move. This is from the book Chess Fundamentals by Jose Raul Capablanca. Capablanca was a world champion, he's a great chess player, and his book is very instructive. I suggest getting it. Anyway, this is one of the basic endgames that he demonstrates in the book, and white is actually winning here. And there's a method to winning no matter what. As I said, it's white to move, and you have to look at this position and really think about black's chances. He has a rook against a queen. It doesn't look bad at all. You would think that he has a way to defend. However, it's quite unfortunate that he's indeed losing in this position. So, how are we going to break down black's position and win this? Well, obviously, the rook is doing an excellent job here on b7. He's defending the king. He has a lot of stuff that he's just doing. So, next we have to say, do we like our position as white? I think the answer is yes. We have lots of checking opportunities with the queen on e5 and also on c8. So we like our position as white. Whoops. However, we should think about a way to actually return to this position as white, but with black to move. We like our position here. Why not? So how will we do that? First, queen to e5 check. Now, if the king moves to a8, then we can simply check on a1, and he cannot block with a rook because we would have mate on h8. So the king is forced to move back to b8, and we land our queen on a5. Now we have returned to this position, and it is black to move. He has basically two options here. He can move the rook, or he can move the king. Those are his only two pieces. So, which one do we want to move? Well, if king c8, and we have two options as white. We play queen to a6, winning immediately, as the rook is pinned to the king and cannot move. Or we could also play queen to a8 check, which would force the rook to block, and then we can play queen to a7, and black cannot block the mating threats on c7 and d6, or on d7, excuse me, without losing the rook. So, because of that, black cannot move the king. Otherwise, he will lose immediately to queen to a6 or queen to a8 check. So, he has to move the rook. And he actually can't move the rook to any dark squares. If he moves the rook to e7, any dark square on the board, he's going to get forked immediately. So here, for instance, he has to move the king, and we just simply win the rook. Any dark square will yield the same result. If he moves to b2, where is our check? That's right, e5. So the rook cannot move to any dark squares because black would lose immediately. So it has to go to a late square. Let's say rook to b3. And that is actually a decent move here in this position. And black is still losing, but there's a method that we have to use as white to, figure out this win, because it's not the easiest thing in the world. First of all, we should look for the square which would result in a fork of the king and the rook in the position they are now, and that is g8. Well, there's no obvious way to move to g8. We can't just move our queen there arbitrarily. She has limitations in her movement. So, first we should start with queen to e5, check. And now, we have an interesting situation here. If the king moves to a8, then we simply play queen to h8 check, and we are closing in on this g7 square, or g8 square, excuse me. If the king were to move to a7, then we would simply play queen to g7 check. And what does this do? Well, first of all, the king cannot move to a6 due to queen to a1, checkmate. So that forces the king to go back to the h file, or sorry, the 8th rank, and now we have gone from this square to this square to this square, and now we are finally achieving our goal of reaching g8 and checking the king. The rook cannot block due to queen to a2 mate, so the king is forced to move and we win the rook. And this sort of method works on every light square on the board. We have to find checking squares which allow us to check the king on a light square. So for instance, if rook to b1, which is slightly harder to figure out, we still go queen to e5 check. Okay, and now we see that the move that we need to win the rook is we need our queen on h7, checking the king on the 7th rank. So the king is forced to move. If he goes to either of these squares, if he goes there, then we actually need to do something different here, because checking on g7 does not work due to the rook guarding the a1 square. So we do queen to c, or excuse me, a better move actually is queen to d4 check, allowing us to mate black. If he moves to a6, we can mate him on a4, like so. So black is forced to move to the 8th rank, it doesn't matter where, here for instance, and now we play queen to h8 check, and again we came to a square which is very close to the square where we need to check the king, and he's forced to move to the 7th rank, and now we win. Very simple. And that works for every white square on the board. Try it yourself and you will understand much better than me just explaining it to you. So until next time, good luck with your chess. Bye.